Hello, everybody. My guest today is Ben Congleton. He is the CEO and co-founder of Olark Live Chat. It's a bootstrapped, profitable, and proud, helping over 12,000 businesses grow by communicating with the right customer at the right time. He's passionate about building strong work cultures where teams bring their whole selves to work. Ben, are you ready to take us to the top?
Let's do it.
All right, Olark, first off, I love that you're bootstrapped, and I love that you are competing with giants who are raising probably way too much money for their own goods. So this is going to be a good story. For people that have not heard of the company, tell us what the company does.
Basically, we were the first company that made it really easy to add live chat to your website. So like when you're shopping online as a visitor, you can chat with an operator from the business. But more importantly, as a business, you can get more value from the traffic that's currently on your website. So if you're an e-commerce store, you can capture more leads, convert them into sales. If you're a B2B business, we have customers that have generated, upwards of $5 million a year from leads coming off of chat. So we basically help businesses grow.
That's great. And I'm sure you have plenty of cohorts and you do all kinds of analysis, but on average, what does one of these customers pay you per month?
On average, a customer of ours pays us in the range of, we'll say under $100.
Okay. Somewhere near 100. Fair enough. And before we kind of get your timeline here, what pricing axes do people they'll pay higher for or less for? Is like number of seats, number of chats? What is it?
We're just number of seats. We have a couple of add-ons you can add onto a plan, but primarily it's just number of seats. Very simple pricing.
Yeah. All right. Timeline. When'd you launch?
We launched, I guess the early beta was probably 2007. And then we launched paid in 2009. And so we've been going strong for, I guess, full time for almost 10 years.
And then you're bootstrapped, right?
So we raised under 85K. Well, we raised 85K total. So you can figure out whether that's bootstrapped or not. I think for any modern company, that's nothing.
Well, when we look at some of the others in your space, Intercom and Drift, what they're raising, I would say, yes, you're very much bootstrapped. Between 07 and 09, what were you doing? So to walk me through those first kind of struggle years, how were you paying yourself? How were you surviving?
Yeah. So at that time, 2007, I was a PhD student. So I was working on a PhD. This was just a side project. So basically on Sundays, me and a couple of friends would get together and hack on this thing on Sundays. We were running there's probably a more important backstory here. So basically I was running a web hosting company through high school, through undergrad, running this web hosting company. It was just sort of generating more or less passive income.
How much?
Everyone graduated from senior year, it grossed over 170K.
It's pretty good for a senior. You're a popular senior then.
Help pay for college for us. So then by the end of undergrad, my two friends who were doing this with one went out to California to do a band. One was just doing freelance consulting and getting paid, and I was doing a PhD. And so we were doing a bunch of freelance consulting as sort of a secondary source of income. And we hated doing it. So we decided hey, we're building software for startups. We could do better than this. We could build a better product than this. And so that was 2007 when we built the first version of Olark, which we called Abla. That was basically funded by that consulting firm.
Interesting.
On the side.
Interesting. Okay. And then fast forward to today. So 10 years later, what are you guys at in terms of total customers on the platform?
So, we have over the public number I use is over 12K.
Okay. And when was that public number, when was the last time you released that? So you had 12,000 customers at what date?
That's a couple of years old.
Okay. It's a couple of years old. All right. So, I assume you've probably grown past that. Any update you can give there? Have you passed 20,000?
Yeah, we're waiting for kind of a fun opportunity to announce but that's the biggest public number we operate.
Fair enough. Okay, good. So 12,000 folks. And I can kind of multiply here. 12,000 times $100 on average. You're north of 1.2 million bucks a month at this point.
We don't really talk about any of those numbers. You can kind of do the math you want.
But Ben, I don't want to guess. I'm literally just taking numbers you gave me. I think you're probably significantly larger than that at this point. Is that fair enough to say?
I'll just say no comment. We can kind of move on, but you guys can do the math.
Okay. Well, by the way, why do you hold that back? I feel like in the space, it's such a strong thing to be able to say you're bootstrapped and doing this well.
It's a good question. I don't think I have a great rationale for holding it back, but it's just something where we as a management team, we haven't agreed to release any numbers. So I try not to
you don't want your founders to hear it and be like, what the heck? Why'd you release it without us?
Yeah, exactly. So like we just don't talk about those numbers publicly unless we have like a press or a PR kind of event we're trying to do.
Well, guys, listen, I'm knocking the hell out of Ben. I'm making him give me all these numbers, so don't blame him. Come after me. Send me a cease and desist or something. All right. Ben, this is great. So talk to me about customer acquisition growth. Where did the first 100 customers come from?
In the early days, right, we launched this free product in 2007, right? So back then there was nothing else there. So we went and just grew it on forums, basically looking for people that, had the problem that we were solving and just gave them a solution for it. And then over time, because we were the first people who put this little floating chat box on the internet, that created some virality. So like, someone adds us to the site, they see it's Olark, and then they want it for their own site. Nowadays, that strategy doesn't quite work as well because the space is so crowded with little widgets that float in the bottom right-hand corner. But back in the early days, we were really the first company doing that. And that helped us grow quite a bit.
Did you guys ever get down to like details and actually model a viral coefficient where if one user installed it today, they would invite 10 users at a 30% conversion, and then it would kind of your flywheel was working?
The numbers, like it was highly variable based on what site it was on and whether they turned off branding or not. So like we let people turn off branding. So it was more of an efficient, it was attached to like who's the audience. Like for example, if you're an e-commerce company, like we'd end up getting less customers that way. If you're a B2B SaaS company, you'd see more. I imagine that both Drift and Intercom have seen like similar growth, sort of based on where they're installed.
Yeah, interesting. Today, as you add customers, I imagine you've probably tested some paid stuff. Maybe you have some inside or sales or customer success people. When you look at like your fully weighted cost to acquire $100 a month account, what are you willing to pay for that?
We are like horrible at marketing. So like right now, so this is the area where I would say as a business, like it's the area we're the least invested. So even though our product is bought by marketers and, we have a lot of very smart customers using our product that have done a lot of modeling, like, cost acquisition, off chat, how that converts into a paying sale. Like Olark, we've mostly done organic and we haven't really like pushed it out. We're actually in the process of, sort of basically investing in marketing, like bringing in someone who's like far better at marketing than we are to sort of help us scale, because we've realized that organic is nice, but I think we can do a lot better than that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hey, by the way, we have very smart people listening to the show, private equity people, B2B SaaS CEOs, all that. Make that pitch a little more clear. So are you looking for like a head of marketing or what's the title? What would they do on a daily?
It'll be closed. The position will be closed by the time these guys apply. Like we get some really freaking amazing people in the pipeline.
Oh God, you've already really final stage.
It's like, I mean, there are probably like over 300 applicants for this thing. Like it's when you can hire remote, you get a lot of people from all over the place, and some of those people are quite fantastic.
Well, let's learn from that, right? So you get first off, how did you call for applicants?
More or less, I think it was Indeed, and we work remotely. I personally didn't run that hiring process, right? So I have a director of people ops. They run the hiring process when we need to do an exec search. They're, very experienced, have done other exec searches in the past. So this is just for them, it's their forte. For me,
at what point do you come in?
Where I come in, it comes down to defining what I want in that position and what sort of skill set we're looking to hire, what they need to be able to do in the first year. And then, building an interview process, making sure we can assess them on those skills, et cetera. That's sort of like where I come in. But the sourcing isn't something that I worked on directly.
Can you share that detail? So when you said, hey, what do you want to do in the first year? Were you able to give like a numbers like, hey, we want them to do this, or?
I think what we did for them, we basically, want them to hit the ground running. So we gave them like a 90 days, like, hey, figure stuff out, because, we don't have a lot of established sort of background in marketing. So there's going to be a lot of learning to come on, and, taking that team that is there and sort of assessing them and figuring out how to help them really grow and succeed. And then we sort of set a target for the next 90 days. And let people sort of show us how they're going to do that. We actually did something pretty interesting where we paid people to do homework. So we gave them a bunch of stats that were kind of made up numbers, but pretty close to our real numbers, and said like, hey, give us like what opportunities you see, what assumptions you need to make given this data we've given you, put together first 90-day plan and a second 90-day plan. Like, what are your key results for each of these periods? And then we sat on call and talked to them about this.
That's crazy. So how many people did that actually return to plan?
I think it's probably under 10, but at that point we had like really filtered things down. You filter resumes, you do phone screening calls, and then we do homework. Cause we just, we only want people that we think could get the job doing this homework.
Yeah. Have you met these people like over the phone or in person yet? You know them, all the names?
At this stage when we've given them the homework, Mandy is doing all the phone screens, and then we give them the homework. So they've passed resume screen, they've passed phone screen, they're given homework. We pay them for it. So we give you like, a bunch of, reasonable size Amazon gift card, because it's going to take time to do this work.
What are you talking like $1,000 or $10,000 or what?
Sorry, what you say?
I'm curious when you say reasonable size, you mean like $100 or 10 grand or what?
Oh, on the scale of 100, not on the scale of 10. I mean, I
don't know what reasonably sized is. I mean, buying all those books on your bookshelf behind you, you need, $300. So I don't know.
Fair enough. But, most people don't pay at all. So this is like, helping offset that a little bit, buy yourself something nice. And then the people make it through that process, and then we can talk to them about their homework, ask them hard questions, figure out like what they know.
So Ben, I'm just trying to understand, when you personally come in, is that what you do? You come in and actually grill them with questions after you review the homework?
You got it. That's where I come in on this process for this exec.
Interesting.
Because Mandy can do a fantastic job on the first screen. And
so let me ask you, why the hell? I mean, you're seeing all these other companies in the space, and you're going, what the heck? They're like stealing our lunch, and we have a better product, and we were here first. Like, why isn't this us in the headlines? Like, why did you wait so long to do this?
We were trying stuff internally. It wasn't working. Like we had marketing that didn't work. Right. And so we needed to restart. And,
tell me about what you tried that didn't work. Tell me one or two examples.
Well, I think historically Olark had a very strong partner marketing channel. And what ended up happening is those partners started building chat. And so what we realized was that while that worked really well in the early days, it no longer worked strategically. So we needed to come up with a new channel. And the existing team was completely built around that partner marketing channel. And
Interesting.
So we were unable to really adapt internally, and had to bring in, want to bring in some new thinking, some new expertise there to help us try some new channels.
Ben, just to be clear, so I'm making this up. HubSpot maybe was an early partner, but then they released their own chat product a year ago, and you're like, crap. Now now they're competitors, not partners.
You got it. And that happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Basically anyone who has chat now was an Olark partner in the past. And so it's a great growth channel. But some of these guys have relatively bad products. So still our chat is far superior to these bolt-on chat products, like say HubSpot or Zendesk hasn't evolved their chat in 4 years since they bought Zopim. But we still get customers and have many customers using those channels. But what ends up happening is those partners don't want to market for you anymore.
100%. Yeah.
So even though you have all these customers in common that are very well served, you can no longer use that as a marketing channel. So that was one of the challenges that we've been facing a bit.
Talk to me. Churn is critical in this space, especially at this price point. What is your churn today, and how do you measure it?
We don't have a public number for churn, but basically we measure it the standard way. So just
Ben, that's not helpful for my audience. Teach us. How do you measure churn?
We measure churn based on you can do monthly churn, right? So you take your MRR for 1 month, and then you look at the MRR from that set of users at the end of the beginning of the month and the end of the month, and that gives you a number, right? So you can just look at the negative churn. You can just look at the people who left, and you can also look at upgrades. So you can kind of break those out into two parts and look at how much are people growing during a month and how much are people leaving during a month. And then what we try to do is survey the guys that leave to try to understand why they're leaving and sort of break that out. Because, we have a lot of small business customers. Many small businesses churn out. They just die, right? You have customers who outgrow you. For example, there's a lot of let's say you're HIPAA or you're dealing with a very strong, kind of more enterprise compliance requirement. You might move up to someone who, has a situation better able to serve that large enterprise need. And then we try to figure out okay, is this churn we care about or not? And right now we're very happy with our churn rate, and and it's solid from industry standards. And we've, benchmarked it against other companies' churns for companies that with similar levels to us.
Yeah, I would say just from our data, we've done about, I think you're over 3,000 interviews like this. So we have an interesting benchmark data here. I mean, I would say average good churn for this price point in this space would be like definitely sub 3% logo churn per month. And then revenue churn in terms of like net revenue retention even is really dependent on your ability to upsell and expand revenue. So, I mean, would you generally say you're kind of in those ranges?
Yeah, we're within those ranges.
Okay. How do you add the ability? I mean, do you feel like you have strong pricing axes to drive expansion revenue so you can get to net negative with just basing it on number of seats?
I don't think you can do it on pure seats. I think that's basically just a challenge of the SMB target. I think you need to have add-ons. And so add-ons are something we've launched recently, and they've done pretty well there. I think if you look at sort of some of the competitors' pricing where people are charging like for usage-based pricing, I mean, it's pretty interesting, but as a SMB, it makes your pricing like super unpredictable. So like, you may think you're paying $50 a month, but all of a sudden you're paying $200 a month. And, if you're not a high growth startup that's funding that out of VC, like those numbers actually do affect you. So I think the place where we've, been able to shine is having like predictable, simple pricing that makes it really easy for our target customer to get up and running. It doesn't scale as well. Like it's not going to give us a intercom style valuation, but I think like honestly, like most customers don't really care what the company's valuation is when they're buying service. They just want predictable pricing. They want to understand their costs and the value they're getting out of the product, and not have this cost like scale such that company can reach unicorn status, which is something.
Look, I would say with Intercom and Drift and any of these companies, by the way, yes, they get great valuations, but also they've invented pricing models that more directly correlate to value. And so the revenues are growing. Now, I would say you're in the ultimate situation because your ratio between ARR and funding raised is infinite, whereas many of theirs, they maybe raised more than what even their current run rates are, which is obviously not a great position to be in. But I am curious why they've kind of identified additional pricing axes and you have not gone that route, and you just explained why it's unpredictable for an SMB.
Yeah. And I think also like I'm not trying to maximize overall enterprise value. I think those guys have maximized overall enterprise value. They need that because they need to drive cost up significantly to justify their valuation, which I don't need to do.
What do you mean drive costs up?
So basically they need to have
pricing?
They need to, it costs for the customer.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, revenue or cost for the customer. Yeah.
I didn't realize this. We ran out of time. So quick questions here if we can. Growth. What are you growing at year over year?
No comment.
Okay. Health, give me a range that you're comfortable with.
We're healthy and profitable.
Okay. Like, can we say but in the double digits or single digits?
You can say under 50% year over year growth.
Okay, under 50%. That's healthy. And then, I don't know. It could be zero, but under 50%. And then a team. What's the team size today, and where's everyone based?
We're all over. So we're all across the U.S., fully distributed, fully remote. You have people in New York, San Francisco.
And how many?
Little island, Scotland. There's always like a little bit of hiring. I would say probably sub 35 is probably the current count.
That's great. Good. With one big hire coming on here soon, it sounds like. All right. Very good, Ben. Let's wrap up here with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? I guess I like Small Giants.
Number two, is there a CEO that you're following or studying? And an under the radar one.
Under the radar CEO that I'm following or studying. I really like kind of the relationship between the Zingerman's co-founders. You guys probably haven't heard of them, but basically they run a co-op in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's like Ari Weinberger or Winsberg. I'm going to mispronounce the guy's name.
That's okay. We'll look him up.
The two Zingerman's guys.
Zingerman's guys. Number three, besides your own, what's your favorite online tool for building your business?
Oh man, favorite online tool I guess Stripe. It's just like, I like seeing money come in, and Stripe has really done a pretty fantastic job of scaling out what they do. Such that you can use it for invoicing, manual, not just credit cards. They're doing a fantastic job, and I love that product.
Number four, Ben, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
I try to get between 6 and 8.
And
I have a new child, so that certainly makes it harder.
I'm just going to ask, what's your situation? Married, single, how many kids?
Married, one kid out, one on the way.
Oh, wow. And how old are you?
I am 36.
36. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
my 20-year-old self knew? Oh, that's such a great question. I think, man, I don't know. I have a hard time like reflecting back on 20. I think probably self-awareness is super freaking important. Like I think understanding self-awareness and your communication styles and how you communicate with others is super freaking important. I think I've always been super driven and wanted to get a lot of stuff done. But I think it was only through the experience of building Olark and learning the importance of management that I gained that sort of self-awareness and understanding around communication styles. 20-year-old Ben didn't really understand the value of management. And I think, I think I'm actually 35. So 35-year-old Ben is actually, once you get past 30, who cares? And then,
guys, there you have it from Ben. Self-awareness is critical. Founded Olark as a side project back in 2007. 2009, got more serious about it. Today, they're well north of 12,000 paying customers. He shared average price point, call it just around $100 per month. Obviously, if you multiply those, it comes up to about $1.2 million per month. Churn is kind of like an industry range, call it 3% logo churn per month range. Really now starting to experiment with how to drive expansion revenue around healthy pricing axes that are friendly to small business owners. That's really the key. And he's able to do that because he's bootstrapped. So they drive the company however they want to drive it. Growth is less than 50% year over year, but again, totally bootstrapped, team of 35 based all over the country in remote locations. Ben, and also over the world. Ben, thank you for taking us to the top.
For sure. Thanks, Nathan.